Welcome on board. We shall be shortly going into our Kickstarter discussion, but before we do that, let's go to Juma Kiria, who is at Golden Tulip Hotel in Nakasero, and of course talking there to some stakeholders. We just want to understand, on World AIDS Day, the 1st of December, what conversation are the people there having? Good morning, Juma.
Good morning. We are coming to you live from Nakasero, that is at Golden Tulip. Today is World AIDS Day. The world seems to be commemorating, it's called the International AIDS Day. We are coming to you. There are several functions that have been held in different places around the country and around the world to try and remember our family members, friends, brothers and sisters that have gone, who have lost their lives because of HIV/AIDS. But today the themes seem to be looking at the inequalities that are around this virus and what is being done to address the challenges. A lot has been done in the country. The figures seem to be running down, and a lot is being done. Today we are at Golden Tulip trying to understand. There are a couple of functions that have been held. We are trying to talk to people here who have been in the fight against HIV/AIDS, and we are trying to understand what exactly they are doing. We're going to talk to someone who has been. Please come closer to me. You're into this business. We want to understand what are the challenges that are. First of all, why are we here today?
Okay. Thank you so much for hosting us here today. My name is Hilda Namtevi. I work as the communications coordinator for PACE Uganda. And why we are here today, we are here commemorating the World AIDS Day. Why the World AIDS Day? For over a decade, for years, for so many years, for the last 30 years, HIV is still a problem in Uganda. And it is a problem across different sections of people, but the commemoration today is focusing on young people. We have so many young people with HIV, and it is because of so many factors. So the theme this year, we are addressing the inequalities, the things that are barriers that are stopping young people from accessing HIV services or that are causing them to have HIV today. Ideally, statistics show that the prevalence, the national prevalence among the adults is at 5.5%. So for every 100 people that we see, at least 5 to 6 people have HIV. People might look at that as a small number, but it is not a small number. It is a big number.
What are the numbers among the youth?
The numbers among the youth. Ideally, 1,000 people get HIV. For every 1,000 people that get HIV, just know that 37% of them are young people. And that is the major problem. And why? It is because of the inequalities, the iniquities that they are facing because they can't access HIV services. We have a lot of gender-based violence. We have so many young people. We could give a situation in regards to the COVID-19. We had so many young people defiled, and many of them got HIV. We had young people, because they couldn't access some services, for example, pads. When a girl couldn't maybe access pads, she would get maybe an older man to be able to get for her maybe the pads. So such simple things that look very small are putting young people high when we look at the HIV ladder.
Is this something that should worry Ugandans? Because if the youths are getting these numbers, getting the HIV/AIDS, should we worry because they are the future of this country?
Just like you said, they are the future of this country. And we know Uganda is one of the countries that has the highest youth population. So if we have so many youth with HIV, will we remain with any people? So that should be an area that government and civil society and all of us, because it starts with us. The challenge that we have as a country is that for us, every time we look at government, we think they will solve all our problems. But I'm urging all young people, this HIV is a problem. Just imagine if out of the 1,000 that have HIV, 37% are young people. What does that mean? So it is something that should worry us, and it should be us, the youth, to support each other's peers to see that
Hilda, Uganda's has been praised previously for putting up a tough challenge against the fight of HIV/AIDS. Are we losing the battle?
I will not say that we are losing the battle, although at some point in time we stagnated. And at this point, I would like to thank the government, because so many countries have come to copy from us. The ABC strategy that we had made Uganda have its HIV prevalence drop from 19% to the 5.5% that we have today. So it is the commendable efforts that the government has put into place, most especially with the emphasis of our champions. For example, the president of Uganda. He has been a pillar that so many people all over the world look at to see that they end HIV with what he brought as the ABC strategy. So the challenge has been that at some point in time, people relaxed a little bit. So we stagnated, yet we want to end AIDS by 2030. So if we want to end AIDS by 2030, and then we have so many people on a daily basis, as we are here, there's somebody getting HIV. So because we stagnated a bit, but now I see efforts have been put into place. We have what we call the combination HIV prevention package, where we are saying, if, for example, us as space, to address those inequities, what are we doing? We are supporting young people with a number of structural interventions. We are saying, don't just give HIV testing, don't just provide HIV treatment, but do the other things, for example, economic empowerment. For example, as an organization, we are currently supporting 94 districts around the country. If I'm giving you a malaria service, I'll also give you an HIV service. I'll also give you a water and sanitation service. So the challenge, the inequities that we have that are bringing in the HIV among the young people is that some of us are majorly focusing on one thing. You can't just focus on health. Fine, she will be healthy, but if she's healthy, if a girl doesn't have food to eat, she will go and look at this older man who can give her money to buy the food. So ideally, if we are looking at ending HIV, we should be able to provide comprehensive health services, do the behavioral interventions, do the medical interventions, do the social interventions, but also do the economic interventions. For that, if you address a girl or a boy holistically, then you'll have fought the HIV. And again, even at household level.
Hilda, I want to cut you short. We've run out of time, but I guess this is a conversation that will continue throughout the day to try and reach out to people. What I wanted to find out, maybe in one sentence from you, besides people not accessing medicine for HIV, is the information out there? Because previously you would hear abstinence, be trustworthy, use condoms. Is the message still out there?
Yes, the message is out there because ideally people have, when you look at the knowledge levels about HIV, they are really, really high. They are in their 90%, above 90. But it's just people just relaxed, and I think HIV wasn't in their face. The way they used to see people dying or dropping, that is why they relaxed. But the knowledge is there. It's just that the structural interventions are lacking. So if we address those, we shall be able to address HIV, most especially among the young people. And as an organization, with our partners across the country, the Global Fund, the CDC, the Global Fund, the USAID, and many other partners, TASO, MildMay, we thank them for being able to work with us to ensure that we provide HIV services across the country.
Thank you, Hilda. I can't say anything more. Chris, I want to come back to you, but people should keep watching out against HIV/AIDS because it's a collective responsibility to fight this virus. I am Juma Kiria from Nakasero Golden Tulip.
Thank you very much, Juma Kiria, for the updates there on what's happening at Golden Tulip in line with the day's commemoration. 1st December, World AIDS Day, a day that is dedicated to increasing awareness, but most importantly, being able to put together, knitting together all the different aspects of interventions and works that are aimed at reversing the spectre of HIV and AIDS. Now, let's return to close quarters in the studio and continue the discussion with our guests. I'm joined by Dr. Daniel Byamukama, the HIV Prevention Division Head at the Uganda AIDS Commission. I'm also joined by Ruth Awori, the Executive Director at Uganda Network of People Living with HIV/AIDS, as well as Patricia Najita, a Communications Officer at SRHR Alliance Uganda, for perspective and insight on HIV/AIDS and World AIDS Day. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I'll begin with you, Dr. Daniel Byamukama. The lady has been speaking, and there's a lot that she shared. We were listening in, and there came a point of contention on knowledge about much of what is being disseminated. Just bring us up to speed with that.
Thank you. Good morning, our listeners. I think the point of contention was about the level of knowledge.
Yeah.
And as the Uganda AIDS Commission, we regularly conduct surveys across the country to assess the levels of knowledge. And it's good you've raised this issue because it's a point of emphasis. We discover that less than 50% of our people in the whole country have enough information to not contract or transmit HIV out of ignorance. So what I'm saying, more than 50% of our people in the country are still transmitting or contracting HIV out of ignorance. So the level of knowledge is not as high as one of the speakers said. It is still very low. And I take this opportunity to call upon all our stakeholders, especially the leaders. If you remember our response, how it worked in the 1990s, our leaders were at the forefront, led by His Excellency the President, but the religious leaders, the other political leaders really spread this information. They are the key educators.
That's right.
Of course, the media, you played a key role. So we are calling upon all the leaders. And I am very sure most leaders have the same opinion that we have been teaching for so long. But there's a whole generation of young people who have just grown up. They do not have
they don't know much.
exposed to this information. So we are calling on leaders that if we are going to meet our goal of ending AIDS as a public health threat by 2030, you have to go back to the basics.
Yes.
Teach the people. Teach the people they don't have information. We have the facts as Uganda AIDS Commission. They don't even know the services we have put in place. We have services. The young people will tell you about the available services. But most of the people don't know about these services. So as we move towards the national commitment of ending AIDS by 2030, teaching the people is going to be a key tool. Mobilizing and teaching the people like it was done in the 90s must be brought back on board.
All right.
People don't have the information.
They don't have the information. Well, we have a communications officer with us, Patricia Najita from SRHR Alliance Uganda. When it comes to dissemination of this information, the media is at the forefront, no doubt. We amplify the figures, the statistics, and the perspective that we are offered. You are in the business of communication. Respond to Dr. Daniel Byamukama's concerns.
Thank you so much. I feel that he's right in such a great way, because I'll give you an example. Oftentimes you will travel to the field and they've told people that one of the prevention measures for getting the HIV virus is that you use a condom. But they've not told them how to use it. So a person will say, yes, I used it, I put it under my pillow. Yes, I used it, it was there in the room by my bedside table. So how did I contract it? So it's important that as we talk to people and give them information, we explain it to them in a way that makes sense. The one will talk to an urban young person about the preventive measures of HIV and tell them use this or use that is not the same way I will be called to talk to a rural young person that I have found maybe in Busoga or in Arua. We need to find a way to get this information home. Do we need to change it to their languages? Let's do so. Do we need to take away the big words as we call them and explain it
sloganeering,
slogans and so many acronyms and all that? Take them away and bring this message and in a language that they can understand as young people. Yes,
Ruth Awori, you are the chairperson, executive director, I must be very specific, of the network of people living with HIV/AIDS, information is critical.
Sure.
Within the network, I believe there are clusters of how you're rolling out this information or how the people within the network are receiving it. I hope it is not something that stays within the executive director, the secretary general, the guys, the officers and the ACs. How best are the people that are supposed to receive this information getting it in a timely manner?
So one of the things that usually works out for us is that we have broken down the information. For example, just like Patricia has said, that when you're communicating to young people, you need to speak their language.
Yeah.
So it being a network of young people living with HIV, we have made an effort to work with the young people themselves, design these messages. There are quite a number of pre-approved messages by the Uganda AIDS Commission that we work with as an organization to communicate to young people in different ways. For example, you may decide to use social media as a tool of communication, but we also know that a young person down deep in Karamoja may not be able to access a smartphone.
That's
so
right.
what we do is reach out to them, maybe send a text message, develop IEC materials or information and education communication materials that we take down to the communities, but also have those conversations at that level, have those dialogues, round tables to understand what exactly does the community know. If there are any myths and misconceptions, you demystify them and make sure that we have the right information on the ground running.
Okay, we're glad to have an official from the Uganda AIDS Commission, an organization within the aegis of government that is concerned and has the mandate to follow the trends. The statistics right now are a bit grim. According to UPHIA 2020, the national prevalence of HIV is at 5.5%, with women there at 7.1%, almost double of that of men at 3.8%. What is responsible for this particular picture? Women 7.1%, men 3.8%.
Yeah, thank you. It is a fact that currently the HIV prevalence is at 5.5% in general, showing a gendered pattern with women more affected than men.
Yeah.
But the factors that make women, mind you, all women get infected by men. That is the interesting part. So all the women who have HIV, they are getting infected by men. And we have come to zero down in our own analysis that the men between the age of 25 and 35 years, they told me you're just slightly above 35 years. So the men between the age of 25 and 35 are the ones who are doing most of the HIV transmission, especially to the young women. So as we discuss along, we shall show you that young women between the age of 15 and up to 29, they are the most affected. Most of the new HIV infections are occurring in that age group. The men between age 25, even though they are fewer, they are responsible for transmitting the HIV to all of them. The reason why there are more women, it is looked at it in 3 ways. The first one, of course, is biological. By the biology of a woman, by the nature of a woman, the risk, you know, there are so many times people step on a snake and they don't get bitten. That is metaphorically speaking. Yeah. There are so many people who get exposed to HIV, but they don't get transmission. Now, that chance is less for a woman compared to a man because of the differences in biology. The way the woman is made is it encourages the surface area, the fluids that spread HIV stay there for so long, increasing the chance of transmission. So that's biology. Yeah. The second one, of course, is behavior. Some of the women, of course, they have the same behaviors that we have as men. They're sexually active, they engage in risky behavior, multiple sexual partners, but even men engage in multiple sexual. But the key determining factor on top of the biology is the social structure. The way society is structured. Things like gender-based violence. If I went home and I discovered that my wife has an STI, chances are that there will be very big trouble. I may have an authority to even ask her to leave or something like that. But most women don't have that ability to tell the man that now that you have an STI, leave, or let's go for an HIV test, or we shall not do nothing until I prove you're HIV negative. So it is such social structure Most women are being raped. There is violence against women, which is rampant. Most women are getting married off when they're still young. That is another factor. Because when you get a young girl below 18 who has no job, and you marry her off to an old man like myself, what do you expect? I do whatever I want. She's a dependent on me. I will come with whatever I want. I will come with gonorrhea. She has no right to demand some respect, some order, because she's totally dependent on me. So it is such structures. The structures outside the control of a woman, structures, factors that have been created by society that put a woman at a disadvantage, that explain why there are more women with HIV than men. Not that women are more, their behaviors are different. Their behaviors are the same. So the biological, but the social structure factors put a woman at a disadvantage and at a higher risk of contracting HIV.
That's a very grim picture, Patricia, when it comes to the fact that they are disadvantaged by some of the factors that are beyond their control. When you are structuring communication messages to many people out there, what are your considerations?
Our considerations are many, but I will say that one of the most interesting considerations is the current state we're in. One, World AIDS Day falls within the 16 days of activism
for gender-based violence.
Exactly. Yeah. So we are currently showing you that these two things are interlinked and they're related. So we do our best to tailor messages to people in a way that communicates all round. If you're telling young people that they need to test, you're telling them that they need to test together. It's not important that I, Patricia, go and test, and since I am negative and I know my status, I come back to you and go like, it's enough that I know my status. You need to know the status of both the people that are going to engage. If one person is on treatment, it's important that they disclose to the other, because it's possible for someone to remain positive and the partner to remain negative and still live together without the other status changing. So we do our best to ensure that messages are positive. That is one of the issues. Messages are all round, because I'll give an example. In the 90s, I think most of the messages we saw about HIV embedded the fear factor. You will die. If you get this, you're going to look like this. If you do this, this is what it's going to look like. But right now, we are transitioning into an era that instead gives positive messaging. Yes, you can prevent HIV. You're part of the struggle that can prevent. Make choices that can prevent HIV. Choose wisely to see that you do not change your status to be positive. But should it happen, right? It is possible to live healthy, right? It's possible to still stay positive, but have a healthy life, healthy children, and still a productive. Still stay as a productive citizen.
Well, the particular theme for this year on a national level focuses on adolescents and young women. The good doctor from the Uganda AIDS Commission has already told us that women are particularly in danger when it comes to this. Let's speak to you within the network.
Sure.
And of course, you have a lot more information from the ground than any of us right now. Adolescents, what is the key driver when it comes to contraction of HIV/AIDS?
I would not so much differ from what Dr. Dan has mentioned, because what puts us all at risk, different factors, sometimes are driven by poverty, in that when I'm looking out for something, we're having a discussion earlier of trading sex for material things or money to afford a living. And then also, given the fact that adolescents and young people usually do not have a well-paying job, so they will do anything to look out for money. And then sometimes it's a factor of gender-based violence, in that some girls have been raped, some girls have been defiled, and there is that fear of, how do I tell a person that I've been defiled? Instead, they choose to keep quiet, and that brings me to the stigma that is surrounding living with HIV, that is surrounding being a victim of gender-based violence, in that some people would rather not disclose to anyone to seek support, but rather stay, and at the end of the day, they end up contracting the virus. So the other thing that is really, really a driver is the lack of information, because you realize that some of the young people do not even know of how is HIV actually transmitted. Some of them still believe that all I have to do is avoid touching someone who is living with HIV, or some of them actually still believe that if we have had unprotected sex, you can still shower cold Coke and you'll be safe. So you realize that the information gap, is still a very big driver for the new infections, but also the fear and the stigma that is hindering people from disclosure of their HIV status is also an issue. Because realize that one of the steps of reducing the infections is the ability to disclose. So if I have a partner, if I can easily talk about my HIV status, then you can easily go for services that can prevent me transmitting to him. But if the environment is not safe enough for me, then definitely I'll not be able to disclose, continue with the risky sexual behavior, and before you know it, my partner is also seroconverting. Then the society that we live in, we are in a society where there is a lot of neglection from the parents. We already say that we need to take it back to the parents to talk to the children, because you realize that we are having a generation, we have been able to record tremendous milestones in preventing, in elimination of mother-to-child transmission. Now the new infections that we are having amongst young people are the ones that they have gotten through partners and other risky behaviors. And why is all that coming back is that we are now in a society where children are raising children, in a society where parents are very busy to give information to their children, and before you know it, we are left to the society, we are left in the hands of schools, we are left in the hands of civil society organizations and the internet to get information about HIV.
All right, Ruth Awori, Patricia Najita, and Dr. Daniel Byamukama, we shall be going for a short break. Discussion will continue, and we shall be delving into something that is leading the awareness call, the budgeting process and the need to prioritize which areas, and of course the investment spaces for health and everything within that. Do stay with us. We shall be right back.
NTV.
Yes, we're glad you're still with us. If you're just joining us, welcome on board. We're having a discussion on HIV/AIDS, ending the stigma in light of 1st December World AIDS Day. And in studio, we have Dr. Daniel Byamukama, the HIV Prevention Division Head at the Uganda AIDS Commission. We also have Ruth Awori, Executive Director at the Uganda Network of People Living with HIV/AIDS, as well as Patricia Najita, a Communications Officer at HR Alliance Uganda, for perspective and insight with regard to critical interventions. All right, we are going to be wrapping this up, so I'll be giving each of us an opportunity. We can use a minute. Dr. Daniel Byamukama, religious leaders were critical at the beginning of the campaign by the government and were into the various rollout of information. Today, it's a bit difficult to know whether that is effective or not. Where do we stand?
Thank you. I think the national HIV response from the start depended on strong leadership, championed by His Excellency. But religious leaders were key, as you rightly say, even political leaders and cultural leaders. We realize that they have taken a slightly back seat. But we have a national commitment of ending AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. That commitment was reached through a scientific, it's not just ambitious. A discussion with the president, with the technocrats, he led us to a conclusion that we can actually defeat AIDS in Uganda based on the tools we have. But to achieve that, we want leadership again. The leadership that we saw in the 90s by religious leaders. Now, the challenge with the religious leaders, they have not only gotten tired and taken a back seat. I don't know whether that is out of the comfort of not seeing, created by HIV treatment that creates healthy, everybody looks healthy. They don't feel the comparison stock now. But we are calling upon our religious leaders to take the front seat, deliver the important message to our people, information about the services available, information about prevention. They were key. But we are also calling on religious leaders, the religious leaders who are sabotaging the message. And there are so many, especially in the Pentecostal churches. When we look at our data, last year we lost 17,000 people due to HIV-related illnesses. But when we analyze it further, we find that most of the people who died are people who had never tested for HIV. So I want to take this opportunity to call on our listeners to test for HIV.
That's right.
We are lagging behind. But the other group that was dying were people who had stopped treatment. And we know that many people are stopping treatment because the religious leader has promised them a miracle. So we are calling on that religious leader who is dispensing miracles to HIV positive persons to really tone down, to join the national HIV response, to leave that, because many of our brothers are actually dying when we don't expect anybody to be dying from AIDS-related illness now in this generation. So we are calling on that religious leader to play a positive role. But we are also looking for leadership to pass the relevant policies that we need. We want policies on ending stigma, policies on ensuring the young people get the reproductive health services they need. And finally, we want the leader to give us the resources we need.
All right.
We have so many good programs, but they have not been brought to scale. We want the resources to take the services to Kabong, in the whole of Karamoja, to West Nile, that every young woman who is at risk of contracting HIV gets the prevention. We have so many good prevention services that should be taken to scale across the whole country. Thank
you very much. Ruth Awori, in line with inequalities, persons with disabilities are also affected heavily when it comes to HIV/AIDS. How is this being dealt with within the network?
So the first thing that we always look at as we are looking at programming are the intersecting needs. You realize that you'll find someone who is living with a disability and they're also HIV positive. That means that the challenges they're facing are way higher than the other people.
That's right.
So we are deliberate, and that's my call to action, that when we are doing these programs, let's take into consideration the different intersectionalities. Because you may find that it's not a person living with a disability, but it could be a person, a young mother, who is a teenage mother, they're living with HIV now, they're mother to a child, their children themselves. Just to that as we are designing programs, we design programs that speak to the different unique needs of the people that we are targeting them to. And then also to the young people, one thing that I wanted us to look at is that as we are discussing inequalities, ending inequalities this year, it's all about young people. It's our role as young people to see to it that we put an end to the tap of HIV, since the new infections are there. And then it's our role to see to it that we are being safe, we are getting tested, we are practicing safe sex if we are, and then those who are not sexually active are abstaining from having sex.
Okay. Patricia Najita, very quickly, help us understand what loopholes should be plugged in the ecosystem of interventions.
I think the biggest loophole that we could plug is embracing the multi-sectoral approach. If everybody out there, no matter what they do, whether you sell food in a market, whether you are the head of a whole department in the Uganda AIDS Commission, or you are a whole executive director, or you are a taxi driver, everybody has a role to play. And if we embrace the multi-sectoral approach and stop looking at HIV as issues of the government, issues of the CSOs, or issues of those people that are involved in it, and looked at it as our issue, because it is possibly your sister positive but not telling you, or your parents actually positive but they manage to have you negative and you do not know that your parents are living with it. So if we learn to embrace it as an issue for all of us, even in schools, there was a question of whether children or students that are positive in school actually have access to their needs for treatment. So I think if we go back to the multi-sectoral approach, all of us treat this as our issue, not as their issue, I think we shall realize a lot of growth.
Okay, very lastly, where are the national commemorations being held today?
In
Rukunjiri district.
Yes, please.
All right, there you have it, the information. Ruth Awori, Executive Director of the Uganda Network of People Living with HIV/AIDS. Many thanks for making it. Many thanks to you too, Patricia Najita, the Communications Officer at SHR, Alliance Uganda, and of course, Dr. Daniel Byamakama, the Section Division Head Prevention, Uganda AIDS Commission. It's been a pleasure having your insight and perspective. Of course, today is World AIDS Day. The conversations are going to be prolonged, and later here on NTV, we shall be speaking to many more stakeholders. For now, though, that's it. It's been a pleasure having your company on behalf of my colleague, Priscilla, Regina Naloga, and of course, the team behind the scenes that ensures that this is a success on every single day, Monday to Friday. Many thanks for the good job done. I'm Chris Higenyi. Have yourselves a lovely day.